What would win a fight, a Garrow or a Lancer mech? I know nothing of both apart from the stream. Okay, so Garrow would lose.
Bruh.
100%. Why? Because Lancer has future tech. The only one I could legitimately see winning would be if it was like a Goblin. Take literally any Lancer mech outside of the Goblin, and the only reason the Goblin would not win is because it's effectively a hard suit. It's a size 1/2 that specializes in hacking. So it can't effectively use conventional weapons, and all of its special abilities would not affect an organic. The Goblin is the only one that would stand no chance. 100 Garrow versus 1 Everest. I don't know. That's a lot of Garrow. Caliban Soul. No, see, that's the thing. It's not a size thing. It's not, oh, the Goblin's little, so it would lose. It like the Caliban would wipe the floor with the Garrow. Wanna know why? Because the Garrow. Let me look this up real quick. This is a table of your effective strength. Here's a feat you can do and the highest amount of weight you can lift without needing to roll. If we look at a 5, which is what you would be at if you didn't have Krynos form active, you would be able to break open a metal fire door, tear open a chain link fence, or chain gate. This is like you can break open like weak metal. And this says you can deadlift 250 pounds, which is like a motorcycle. 9 strength, which is the highest you can get with Krynos form naturally, is punch through concrete, break chains, rip open a car door. And this is you can deadlift 540 pounds, which is like a tree trunk or a small plane. Outside of literally just the Goblin, because it's a hard suit that specializes in hacking, literally every single mech, you would not be able to deal damage to it physically. Like, it doesn't matter if you have like spiritually enhanced bites or claws, or you're like really going to the gym and like taking your protein supplements. I think legitimately you'd be incapable of dealing damage to a mech. And the highest listed is 15, which I have no idea how you could get this high. Overturn a truck, toss an SUV, 2.75 metric tons, which is a Humvee. I think if you had a 15 strength Garrow, it would be able to toss around probably a size 1 mech with effort. It would not be able to do that easily. It would not be able to do that regularly. It could not pick up an Everest and like shot put it. However, with a good high roll, it would be able to lift and like knock down an Everest. Which, let me remind you, an Everest can make a hold check to ram and knock down another Everest, and that's considered like an average to maybe even easy difficulty. So if you have the absolute maximum ability of the Garrow strength pool, you are able to sometimes barely do the bare minimum of what a normal mech can do averagely. 15 is a contender for a Caliban who can just punch a Barbarossa. I don't think that this is really comparable, unfortunately. Now, what would be really interesting is, depending on the Garrow, they might have the gift Gremlins, which the gift Gremlins says, by intimidating the spirit within a technological device, the Garrow can cause that device to malfunction or break down permanently. A Havoc spirit grants this gift. You target a device in sight within 5 meters, so if the Garrow can get close. It is Charisma plus Glory versus the difficulty of the device. A win means that device is rendered inoperable, unusable for the rest of the scene. A critical win renders it completely inoperable and beyond repair. And computers are listed at a difficulty of 2, where the more analog the technology, so for instance, electronics like cameras are listed at 3, like engines are listed at 4, firearms are 5, and like a bicycle or like a mechanical lock are listed at 6. I would say you couldn't target a mech as a whole, but you could target like the reactor, which I would say is like a 2. You could target the targeting system of the mech, which I would say is probably like a 1. Like, the more technologically advanced a system is, the easier it is for Gremlins. And there's also another ability that's very similar. Jam technology. It has basically the same function, except this, instead of being a 5 meter single target, this is just an aura around you. All equipment within 20 meters. So if you have a Garrow that knows jam technology, get within 20 meters of a mech, I would say that would affect every single system in that mech. And the highest would be like a difficulty 2. Is an NHP a device? An NHP is absolutely a device. An NHP is a device that is also an Eldritch consciousness masquerading as a device. It is simultaneously an AI as it is a distinct entity from my understanding, because it is an AI. It is artificial. It is technological, even if it does have like magic raw juice behind it. So is that Mech's NHP the spirit in this instance? See, that would be so interesting, because like, what if a Garrow sees an NHP in a mech and is like, that is the spirit of this thing that has been trapped by the Weaver, I must free it. And then it manages to do that. So like the casket is definitely tech, is the NHP technology. If you add an NHP to a mech, you get the AI tag. However, is an NHP, quote unquote, just an AI? Or is it an Eldritch entity that inhabits computerized devices functioning like an AI? Do this to a Hydra or Baylor and it just drops the pilot to run away. I'm missing the obvious opportunity, werewolves and mechs. I will say a Glasswalker, which again, these are like the tech spirit ones. These are the ones that like work with spirits of technology. A tech spirit oriented Glasswalker who pilots a mech. They don't physically do controls. They are just communing with all of the spirits within the mech. They're communing with the spirit of the mech's gun, and the spirit of the mech's leg motors, and the spirit of the mech's like targeting system. All of these different spirits working in tandem, and the Glasswalker is effectively working more like a manager or like a captain, where instead of physically like pushing a button to fire a gun, they're like, starboard cannon, fire. I want us back 3 clicks. All right, rotate 90-degree port side, full barrage. Like, that'd be so cool. Werewolf tech priest, yeah, it would be a tech priest in a Titan. That's within the ability of a vector user in Kane. Garrow versus Mech. I'll say an Everest, just because the Everest is so typical. It's a good size category. It will have probably like an assault rifle and some knives and some missile launchers. Like, you know, generally what an Everest is going to have, right? So Garrow loses against the Everest. Someone said a strength 15 is within the bounds of a Kane vector user, which I think makes sense because vector users are determinant on their category. In Kane, everything is measured by cat. You start at cat 1 and you develop and change over time, and eventually you hit cat 5. That is considered the max of a player character. There are NPCs who go beyond cat 5. But you as a player are intended to really only go up to cat 5. Vector is a blasphemy or like a power set, which is all about like movement and momentum. So its powers are like you imbue velocity in yourself or another object. The combined size of the object or being must be within or equal to your cat +2. Once sent flying, it cannot be changed. Actually, you can alternatively remove all velocity by touching. So wait, let me look at, so that's fling. I just realized Vector doesn't deal with weight. Vector deals with size. A Kane Exorcist can lift a Barbarossa. How many TTRPGs can we Frankenstein together type of topic? That's me every stream. I'm not gonna lie. There's a reason that I'm getting tested. It's not normal. A powerful enough Vector user, which I think would only need to be like cat 3, could lift or push a Barbarossa. Need I not remind you, a Barbarossa is size 3, where I believe, and please correct me if this is wrong, a size 3 is like 30-meter diameter. It encompasses a 30-meter area, of which, like D&D rules, a D&D character doesn't literally take up a 5-foot square. However, that's their area of threat. No one can really enter. You are a person. So let's go like shoulder to shoulder, right? This is like 10 people wide ish. It's approximations. And if we're talking like, I'm not going to count the gun. So it's also 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people tall, each tallness. My guess would be your shoulder width is probably a third of your height. So it's 7 times 3 be 21. So this is 21 by 10. We have our measurement in pilots. my assumption is that based off of my own wingspan and my own shoulder width, my guess it's probably half a meter, 2/3 of a meter wide. So that would be just over 6.5 meters wide, because 10 times 2/3 would be 20/3, which would be just over 6, like 6 2/3. And then tall, if we're doing that times 3, so that would just be 2. So that would just be 14. Would this be 14 meters tall and 6.5 meters wide? Which I think is absolutely reasonable for like a Cat 3 Exorcist to Vector. Question, would the abilities of the mechs interfere with being pushed around? You're right. You're right. Because the Barbarossa, it has a thing that like drives spikes into the ground and keeps it in place. So how would that interface with Vector? Well, so also we have to consider, in the Industrial Revolution, humanity grew like a couple inches, at least in parts of the world that benefited from the Industrial Revolution. Because of better nutrition, because of more ready access to food, because of changing diets, humanity grew a few inches. Do we think that will happen in the next like 80,000 years? Do we think there is another like small growth spurt between now and Third Com? I think it's reasonable to assume that there's at least a couple inches growth. At a high enough cat, you can just lift the bedrock from under them. That's the thing. I want to see, what is the weakest cane user? What is the weakest cane Vector user that could reasonably lift a Barbarossa that is using its like stability platform? I think it's Cat 3. I think a Barbarossa is like 6 2/3 meters wide. It's like 14 meters tall. 14 meters is about the size of an AC. So if we want to bring in like armored core, we could also bring in armored core. So I solved it. The cane Vector user, someone brought up before the idea of werewolf missile. I say, what if we take a Vector user, have them throw a werewolf at a Barbarossa specifically to knock over the Barbarossa? This isn't to damage it, this is to knock it over. We are fastball specialing a werewolf. What is Wolverine if not just a werewolf with metal? I think we cracked it.